Hi, I'm Harold Bell, and this is the Legends of Inside Sports and the Way We Were. Well, today, since this being Black History Month, we're going to give you a little sports and we're going to talk about a little Black history with my partner here, Chris Johnson, a graduate of Gwynn Park High School, attended Delaware State, and has his own group, rock group, the Cortland Experience. Hey, Chris, welcome to the Legends of Inside Sports.
Yes, sir. Another day, another show. Black History Month. It's going to be some good topics.
Okay, well, the first thing I want to talk about, the NBA breakout of jail trade deadline. Who were the winners and who were the losers in that, Chris?
I think the Cavaliers are the winners. I think they were the big winners. I think what they did to their roster was as good as they could have done in one big trade deadline move. They had so many issues we talked about for weeks, and they were so dysfunctional, getting blown out on TV. And they put the full explosion button on their trade, and they got younger, they got more athletic, and they got rid of a lot of the problem players that they felt were in their locker room. They sent Dwayne Wade back to Miami for a second-round pick, getting a lot younger. They ended up getting Rodney Hood and George Hill from the Jazz, proven scorers, proven young defenders. Their average age of their team went down from 30 to about 26. So they got some young legs. They got rid of the whole Isaiah Thomas experiment, who I think is the biggest loser, not a team. I think a player was the biggest loser. And it's Isaiah Thomas, because it's really going to hurt him in a contract year to have the type of year that he had coming off of injury and to only last about 14 games with the Cavs before they shipped him out of town.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about Isaiah, he's got to prove himself these last 28 games in L.A. You know, he's got to show them something if he's going to get the money. I'm quite sure that's where he's going to stay, get the money that he's going to be asking for in a big contract year. Well, you know, there was another something that went on in the NBA where our team, the Washington Wizards, just stood where they were. They stood pat, and that didn't make a move. And of course, that was cool. But once again, you got to understand, unless Marcel Gauthier is going to give them a double-double, 10 points and 10 rebounds, they will have a problem at the big man spot. And one of the things that we saw in that last game with the Boston Celtics, which I thought the officiating was terrible. I never talk about officiating, but man, it looked like the fix was on in that one, especially the way that they gave Kyrie Irving 3 shots when he was never touched, and sent the game into overtime. And then when they came back in overtime, they gave him 3 more free shots. So, you know, if I was the owner, Mr. Leonis, I would say don't ever send those 3 officials back in my arena again, because it really reminded me of that guy who was on the tape in the NBA officials. You know, yeah, Donahue. He ended up doing 7 months and came out, wrote a book, and got rich, I guess. But something is wrong, man, when you see a team hustle back the way that the Washington Wizards did, and plus, the game before, they could have been blown out in Philadelphia. But I got to give them credit. Yeah. They hung in there and at least made it a game. You know, I mean, they got tired legs, man.
Yeah, play with some heart.
Yeah, but that game with the Wizards against the Celtics, man, was terrible. One of the worst officiating games that I've ever seen. And I'm always saying that the players cry too much, but that was one game that we should have cried over.
Exactly. I totally agree, because I've been saying the whole year, I like when the officials let them play, but you can't change the way you officiate through the whole game. You let them play physical the whole game, and at the end, you're giving phantom calls to Kyrie in crucial situations. If you're going to make a tight call like that, you got to do that in the early points of the game, not when the game's on the line. You can't automatically give him superstar calls when you haven't been giving those calls the whole game. So I agree with the unevenness on the officiating and how frustrated the players have been with how the officiating's gone. The Wizards, in terms of the trade deadline, I think there were rumors that they were shopping Gortat and they were seeing interest, but at his age and the type of center he is, there's probably not a lot of interest in the league for Gortat and the contract that he has. Luckily, Morris is playing a lot better. Markieff Morris is really stepping up and giving them some production at the big spots, because Gortat's been a little uneven. It looks like age is catching up with him. Like I said, he said in an interview the other day that he understands that he's an outdated breed of center. So he's just going to try to, do the dirty work, but he's got to get that 10-10, like you said.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one thing else that we need to touch on, we've been skipping around and jumping it over. Of course, our man John Wall is out for maybe 6 more weeks. But what is this beef going on between him and his teammates? Where is all this coming from?
it seems to be, like I said, there was the big thing with him and Gortat this week. He went on Sports Center and kind of took a huge shot at Gortat, saying that he spoons feeds him easy buckets, and I don't know why he's complaining about team ball, which is true if you watch the Wizards games. But yeah, it looks like the team is very united without him. Like they won in Chicago last night. Satoransky had 25, starting in his place. Had an excellent game, maybe his best game of the whole season.
That young man is playing some basketball
on
both
5 out of 6
ends
from downtown.
Yeah, on both ends of the court, he is playing outstanding. He's done a great job in filling it. It would be good, man. If everybody considered this a team sport and John come back and be a sixth man, but his ego is not going to allow that.
Oh no!
Let's face that. His ego is not going to allow that. And I still think the Wizards have one of the deepest benches going. You
see the depth in action right now. Now if they're healthy, and the only hole I see, a glaring hole in their team, especially with John Wall down, is the backup point guard position. Tim Frazier is not getting it done. He's not getting it done at all. And with Satoransky starting, he can't play the whole game, so he's going to have to come out, and somebody's got to give them productive minutes as a point guard coming off the bench, and they need that for their second unit. But Mike Scott, those guys off the bench, they're doing a great job.
Well, Chris, as I was saying earlier, this is Martin Luther King and Black History Month. That's what usually it's all about folks who made contributions to Black history. I found a CD that in 1988, on my show Inside Sports at WSU Radio, I asked my listening audience, was Dr. King's dream still alive? And I want you guys to listen to the response that I got from a couple of those callers. Let's see if we can find that and pull it up.
Inside Sports, you're on the air.
Hello, my name is Pat, and I like to say I think the dream is still alive, but the dream is alive in certain people, and those people who are still struggling for progress, and instead of those people who are sitting around waiting for other people, certain blacks to do everything. Like our Reverend Jesse Jackson is alive with him. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Inside Sports, you're on the air.
Yes, Harold, I'd like to make comment in reference to your talk show today. And what I believe that Martin Luther King's dream is still alive. But I believe also that our leaders today, the people who lead us and, who kind of give us some direction, need to step out into the forefront more and show some more leadership as Dr. King gave to us. I believe that blacks today should stop pitting themselves against one another. I believe that we should all have some type of goals and some directions, because we need direction today. The young people, they need the leaders to stand out to guide them. Dr. King stood out and he gave us something. He gave our parents something to hold on to. And we don't have that today. Being a young person, I can see that the young people have no values. They don't know which way to go. And all they think about is the almighty dollar. And that's why we won't never gain. We'll never get ahead, because we believe that the white man's beating us with this, the white man's beating us with that. But it's us and ourselves. And if the blacks want to grow, if the blacks want to be successful in life, they have to arm up and they have to join together. And they have to believe that values and goals and hard work and striving will get them ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Very good. Inside Sports, you're on the air.
Yes, I was just wanting to say that I do believe that Martin Luther King's dream is still alive. And I agree with the gentleman that just spoke that we need to get together. A lot of our criminals and things which are in the jails are there because of crime of black on black. And I think that is a disgrace to the Martin Luther King dream. I think we need to band together more with the injustices that we see that we say are perpetrated by the white man, but we do so much harm to ourselves when we talk against one another and when we act against one another. We tend to have jealousy when one person makes it, and instead of encouraging them and to get others to join in that also. I just think we need more togetherness and more harmony within our own race, and that is my idea.
Thank you very much for your comment, Anita.
Okay, good comments there. As a young man, Chris, what do you think? Do you think Dr. King's dream is alive, or what's happening?
I think it's still alive, but I don't think very much has changed really from the callers that called in then to now. I think a lot of the points they made are still relevant. I think the leaders are not stepping up the way they should, as we talked about as a small microcosm of that, like the protests, the NFL protests, how we have people who are not organized and sticking together and sticking to their guns.
Right.
And as a quote that you showed me earlier, the owners knew that they would fold. The owners knew that the players wouldn't stay unified. It's things like that. And from a younger person's perspective, people still are obsessed with the dollar and think the white man is keeping us down and not looking for solutions and not stepping up and being leaders and not having the greatest role models that are positive for young people, really, honestly. Like, you look at hip hop is such a huge influence on our culture, and I love rap, I love hip hop, but that's a big influencer, and it's different today than it is growing up in the 80s, 90s, and things like that. So it's just trying to navigate this new generation. And we got Trump in office. It seems like things are just going full circle. History repeats itself if you don't learn, if people don't break the cycle.
All right. Well, that interview was 30 years ago, man.
Yeah, that's something like
30 years ago.
Just repeating themselves.
And repeating, we're going in the same cycle. We being sold out, man, from every end. I mean, from our own people. We can't keep blaming the white man when we should have solution ourselves. We can't depend on anyone else. And I think, from where I come from, really, I'm a native Washingtonian. I'm a fourth generation Washingtonian.
What we call an OG.
OG, yeah, that's right, OG. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And until, just like the lady said, and the gentleman, until we stop this player hating with each other, envy and jealousy, we're not going to be able to move anywhere. Anywhere.
I totally agree with that. As another anecdotal, example, the Black Panther movie is coming out this weekend. A huge celebration of Black culture, Black superhero, Black director, all the Black star power in Hollywood, Black people on costume design, wardrobe. But then I see a lot of Black people like, it's not a movement, like there's still the white people getting money off of this. They're not going to do anything for us. So like when we do have something that, is Black, something we can pull together for our culture and for something positive, we still got people hating on it for no reason. Like why hate on each other? We got to support each other. Like support Black owned stuff, support Black owned businesses and art and things like that. Instead of chopping each other down before the movie even comes out, you're already hating on it. Like I don't get it. We can't do it.
Well, it's too bad, man, that our history is being oppressed. Really, I just look around me and I see the things that have taken place. How we got so many frauds in our community, and they find their way making it to TV, to continue this fraud, and we go for that because it's TV that we really don't control.
Oh yeah.
It's TV that we really don't control.
Like I make the point, it's what they do to politicians as well. Like the reason that you see all those guys on TV and we don't see you on TV is because that's what they want to show people. Those are the people that do the bidding of the people at the top. So they're going to put their friendly faces on TV. The people who are going to parrot their agenda and not somebody real. Like they try to pull the whole blackout on you. I haven't seen you on. You should be on the news. You've got the interviews with Ali. You've got the history who've actually been in the community, who know the people, not from the outside looking in. So, like, why don't we see you more on the news? Or right now, you should be on Sports Center. You should be on these places with Will Bond and Stephen A. and places like that.
Well, that goes again, man. That we don't control anything, and thanks to the technology, man, that we now have, that I'm able to send these interviews when we get through them. I can send them out to Paris. I can send them out to France. I send them out to all my email people. Make sure that they see and have some idea about what's really going on in our community, man. What I've done is off the chart. I've been cited in the Congressional Record on 4 different occasions for working with at-risk children and youth gangs. I was the first sportscaster ever named Washingtonian of the Year. So my track record speaks for itself. So I'm the pioneer. When you start talking about radio, television, sports talk, I started that, the whole format that you see in here. So I'm saying we got to leave a legacy for our young people, like Chris. If we got to show the way, but we can't show the way by this player hating and bringing people in from the outside to tell us what's going on in our own city.
Exactly.
That's what I find amazing. So my thing is that to keep on doing what I'm doing, trying to pull somebody else along like Chris, because that's what I did my whole career in radio and television. I was always pulling somebody else along. And people are amazed that I didn't have a major media format like CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox News, and I still helped thousands of kids. I helped get elected 2 pro athletes to the Hall of Fame, and I wasn't on CBS or NBC. So I'm saying it could be done. You just got to be creative and kind of move your way around the obstacles that they're going to place in your path, because the obstacles will be there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an obstacle of a white man. It's really, I've always said, white folks do not have a patent on racism.
Very true.
And you know, there was a piece that came out in ESPN magazine saying the state of the black athlete. And I found it to be very, very misleading, you know, especially when I opened up and I saw who the editor-in-chief was. This guy used to be at the Washington Post named Kevin Miranda. He's the editor-in-chief. When he's at the Washington Post, he didn't know nothing about sports. He didn't know nothing about the community. But there he is at ESPN magazine. So that right there took some of the credibility away from the state of the black athlete. How you gonna know about the state of the black athlete? You never walked in any of them's shoes. So you got to go out and get interviewed from somebody else who might have been there. You know, so you know you're really not getting factual information. And there was one piece we had already mentioned. You know, Malcolm Jenkins from the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, went on and won the Super Bowl. But the kind of this animosity that went down with the players' union. You know, after the NFL players, Malcolm and several other players went in and sit down with the owners, and they ended up giving them $89 million. And so now Malcolm's gonna call Eric Reed, who's the brother that sat down, who's kneeled down with Colin Kaepernick, and told him, say, man, we just got $89 million from the NFL owners. And he said, I just want you to know about it, what you think about it. Well, Eric Reed went off. I think what Malcolm, his heart may have been in the right place. I don't think a brother's a Tom. You understand? I don't think he sold out. Yeah. But he should have went and sat down with Eric eyeball to eyeball, not a telephone call, and said, man, this is what we got. Now let's work out a plan, and we're going to contribute $89 million. We can take that money and really have an impact in the black community with social justice, education, you name it. But the kicker was this. The owners gave them $89 million with the stipulation that they stopped kneeling, no more demonstrations. So it was the owners playing them. Owners really played them. And one of the NFL owners said the players really had leverage. These guys really had leverage, but we knew they were going to implode, and that's exactly what they did.
Exactly what happened.
I saw Malcolm Jenkins on this guy Van Jones's show on CNN last night. And, you know, Van was congratulating him, but they never brought up there was conflict. You know, everything is not rosy, man. We got to get together. Van need to bring those guys together. Since you got this TV format, bring them together off TV and see if they can sit down and talk about those type of things. That's not being done because people don't have that background. And I hope these guys come together, but it does not look good. You hardly heard a whisper during the Super Bowl about the boycott.
Oh, because that's exactly how the owners wanted it. Like, dissent is the highest form of patriotism, so you can't be scared, like you said, to mix it up. Have some discussions, like, you know, don't just take the first deal you take. They acted like the Democrats out here, and like you said, gave up all their leverage that they had, which was kneeling. Like, the protest was your leverage. So to give that up for even $89-90 million, like you said, that's good. But, and I don't think, as you said, I agree. I don't think Malcolm Jenkins is an Uncle Tom or anything like that. I just think he misjudged the negotiation.
Yeah.
I think he tried to do something well, but he doesn't realize that he undercut the movement as a whole.
He sure did. Yeah, he sure did. And I think, man, I had honor of having an NFL player, one of the great NFL players, and one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. You don't hear about him, but he played with the Pittsburgh Steelers, played with the Baltimore Colts, went to a Super Bowl, carried them to the Super Bowl, got a Super Bowl ring, came here to Washington, all-pro wide receiver. But you know why you don't hear about him? Because he was a stand-up brother. He was a stand-up brother. As soon as he came to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he didn't come on his knees. He came as a stand-up man, letting them know that y'all gonna have to treat me like a man. You understand? He didn't treat me like with that plantation mentality. Took it to the Baltimore Colts too, the same attitude. And they had to get him out there because he was looking for helping other players adjust. He wasn't just looking out for himself. And I'm talking about the great Roy Jefferson, really one of the great wide receivers, man, to ever play the game. Should be in the NFL Hall of Fame. But he's being blackballed.
They do it all the time. Like,
all the time. When you
athletes
stand
never
up
hear
and tell the truth, man, they do not want to hear the truth. And that's what I'm saying. I'm so looking forward to my book when it finally hits the stands. You go to really get an education. I guarantee you will get an education about all these frauds and the good guys in this town and the people that are really stunting out children's growth, man.
Yeah, it's real. It goes down to, like I said, it's deeper than just sports. Like I said, it
That's
goes down
right.
to the roots of our community. And like you said, unless there's more people like you out here that they put in positions of power, people that know the community, that have been here, that are, in the trenches, that know the people, like that will be there when it's grimy, that, through the thick and thin, and not people who are out of touch, who are just looking at it from the outside and what they think is going on in the city.
Another piece in that ESPN magazine, State of the Black Athlete, the researcher, I don't know what his name was. I think his name was John Martin Johnson or something. But he said Steve Kerr is the most woke coach on the most thoughtful team in the history of pro sports.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I don't, but I think I see the point. I mean, right now, I think Steve Kerr is a pretty progressive dude.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh
yeah. I like how they shunned the president during, and they did the right things. I like I like what they stand for, but I think it's a stretch to say most progressive ever in all sports.
Well, I got to beef with that because they didn't do their history.
Exactly.
And you can find all this kind of history on the internet. All you got to do is Google the most progressive team in sports history, the most progressive, most woke, as you want to say, coach was Red Auerbach.
Yeah, back in the day.
Red Auerbach back in the day. He and the owner were the first to draft a black player.
Absolutely.
The first to play 5 black players at one time. The first to hire a black coach.
Not to interrupt you, but like think of the league without that. Like think
Yeah.
of what the NBA would look like without Red Auerbach. Like
Man, Red was the equal opportunity employer. The Celtics were. And black folks didn't understand that. All they think about the boss of the city being racist, not the team. And Red was a dear friend of mine. I'll be playing some of his clips too here during Black History Month. I remember Red, I got the word, Red told his security people at the Boston Garden, if they seen any racism against blacks, to kick the people out. You didn't have that stuff at the Boston Garden.
Not back in that day.
Not back in that day, baby. I'm telling you. So when you start making those kind of statements saying that Steve Kerr is the most woke coach and this is the most thoughtful team in NBA or pro sports history, you got it all wrong.
Yeah, just making progressive comments and actually doing progressive things are very different. Like Steve Kerr, having a great mindset and, saying the right things is different from putting that into action at a time where it was a lot more controversial.
Well, one of the things we got to remember too, Steve Kerr came into a great situation, just like that boy Gruden did with Tampa Bay. Mark Johnson.
Mark Jackson built that
Mark Jackson. I keep saying Mark Johnson. Mark Jackson
built
that team. But the things that Steve Kerr are doing now with the Warriors, they wouldn't let Mark get off the ground with it because Mark was a stand-up brother. You understand? He wasn't just go take anything that you say and go along with it. That's why they had to get him out there. Now Steve Kerr comes into a great situation. I think Steve Kerr is a dynamic coach.
Yeah,
You
he's a
know,
great coach.
he's a great coach that gets along with his players. Well, don't tell me that he's the most woke coach and this is the most thoughtful team in NBA history or pro sports history, man.
Yeah, no shade to Steve Kerr, but
Yeah. We got a problem. Like Black History Month, and as you've heard me say on many occasions, that Black History is 365 days of the year here on Legends of Inside Sports. And you got to look around you and understand when I see a guy like Roy Jefferson not being in the Hall of Fame, and I see that we got people from this town who now got sports formats, national sports formats, that don't even have him on their show, don't even mention him, the great things that he did. You know, people say, well, Harold, who had the most impact on you when it comes to, your career in the community and sports? Well, number one was my mother and my grandmother, my wife Hattie, you understand? And my coaches, my high school coach Dave Brown was off the charts, man. I mean, this guy really saved my life. And then when he sent me down to Winston-Salem to Big House games, that opened up another door for me because I was going to hell in a hurry. And we got to think about those folks who helped put us there. And when I think about the people who had the most influence on me and gave me instant credibility, I can start with Muhammad Ali. I can go with Richard Nixon, the President of the United States. I can go with Red Auerbach. I can go with Burt Randolph Sugar. And I can go with Roy Jefferson. Roy, when he came to town from the coast and came here to Washington in 1970 or 71, whichever it was, fell right in with kids in trouble. I had 4 Redskins to come out. First time ever NFL team joined a non-profit organization. I had Roy Jefferson, Harold McClinton, Ted Vactor, and Larry Brown. And everybody else followed. And that's what we don't, these folks, man, today, you see all this stuff going on, man. This stuff, a platform, I went where there was no path and I left a trail. And that's what you guys got to do. If we're going to make any progress, our kids grades are being manipulated. Kids are being put out here in the world with no education. How do you expect them to make it?
Or
Not only in
set up to be
Washington.
in debt. Set up to be in debt too with our whole college loan prices. There's people in debt to their 50s.
Wow.
In college, it's a crisis.
Yeah, we got a big problem. I'm gonna get one of my buddies to come on and talk about this educational system, not only in Washington D.C. and Prince George's County and Baltimore, all over this country, man. Is what's happening with our educational system, and it's stunting the growth of our youth, man.
Absolutely, and that's a terrible thing. And some of it might even be intentional. The money is a lot of corruption in the government and school systems and school boards and all these things. And it's sad to see. Yeah, the children are our future, and we have to invest as such.
Yeah. Well, as always, we get down to the wire. Chris, once again, thank you. Hope you guys learned something from this. And I want you to remember and understand that every black face you see is not your brother, and every white face is not your enemy. Until next time, I'm Harold Bell, and you can color me gone.